Utah in the Weeds, episode 31, right, Chris?
Episode 31. We're on location at Beehive Pharmacy, though.
Yeah, Beehive's own pharmacy. Is that the technical name, or Beehive Pharmacy?
So Beehive Pharmacy, Beehive's own is the parent company that supersedes that. So we have Beehive Pharmacy. We have a couple other ventures under that with brands, with processors, etc.
Okay, Beehive Pharmacy.
With an F.
Yes.
And we're actually across the street from your new location, Tim, which is cool. I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, Utah Therapeutic Health Center right across the street. We're looking at the sign right now. So I just walked over.
That's very cool.
Yes, it's so exciting. We've been helping like patients with cards or with letters. They're able to kind of walk over and get a little guidance with the EVS system. And that's been pretty cool already.
I think we've seen a lot of people with letters come through right from your office that they appreciate that intermediary step. They don't have to wait for the EVS to go live, but they know they have a pharmacy within their region that they can come to. So I think it's going to be great.
Let's give the address here before we go too far. What's your address here, Bijan?
So the address here is 1991 South, 3600 West, Salt Lake City, 84104. So we're right on the west side of the Salt Lake on the bordering edge of West Valley, but we still fall amongst Salt Lake City.
Okay. And I would recommend people putting it in Google Maps to find their way over here instead of just being like, oh, it's on 3600 West. I'll find it, because it's a little tricky to find it over here if you don't know where you're going.
It's conveniently located,
I love the location.
But it's on the north side of the 201. Yeah. So convenience for destination, but you've got to go around the horn, so to speak, to get here, right?
That's right. So you can access it from Bangor or from 3200 West right off the 201. But we're going live, so we're working out our SEO, our Google listings. So you can find our Google business page to directly do directions. But if you visit our website too, you click the address. If you're on an iPhone or an Android, Waze, Google Maps will just take you straight to us. And once we have a 40-foot podium sign that we're going to have green crosses on all three sides. So it'll be kind of a beacon. Once you come to this area, you'll be able to see us right off the north side of the freeway, as Tim mentioned.
Oh, and it's not hard to find. I didn't want to give that impression.
No. And there's tons of parking, and there's this is going to be a great location. There's way more parking than in any of the other dispensaries or pharmacies that we've seen so far, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Now, are you going to have a drive-through here too then?
We will.
You're set up for a drive-through?
We have a 3-lane drive-through. We've got 2 of the 3 lanes ready.
Okay.
We want the drive-through to go live once we work out our workflow internally. And then drive-through is primarily going to be servicing our recurring customers and our online orders. It's difficult to do a consultation and register from your car. So we're working out some of those kinks. But one thing I will say, a lot of people overlook the asset itself. So in retail cannabis, whether it's a pharmacy or a dispensary in a mature market, access and parking are the 2 biggest things. In crazy days, we'll see, upwards of over 100, 200 people. If you have 10 parking spots or you have to park across the street and walk, it's more of an inconvenience for somebody to come through. So we were fortunate enough to find an old bank building. And, banks provide great security. They already have vaults. Yeah. They already have drive-throughs. They usually have good signage, and they have parking. So we have about 45, 50 parking spots. So from a first perspective, it's cool to bring life to an old building that was vacant for 4 or 5 years, because a lot of brick and mortar banks are going out of business. But I think they make one of the more ideal retail cannabis spots because for those reasons mentioned, you're saving yourself a lot of money on build outs to build a drive through and build a vault. You're into it, over $100,000. So
right. Like the interior here is really nice flooring. It's a little warmer than, I would say, like I compare it to the Provo dispensary.
Sure.
Deseret.
Right. Deseret's a little bit more white and maple. And here it's a little bit warmer, the feel.
I feel like every pharmacy has kind of taken a different tone a little bit, which is quite interesting because it's not like you guys all got together and said, okay, you do this, I do this, right? Like you all kind of had your own vision.
And that's the beauty of it. There's so many different flavors. Everyone has a different vibe. And you see that when you walk into every pharmacy. And I think people, once they get to all of them, they get to experience all of them, then they understand, okay, I like the vibe, I like the products, and then I'll come back. And so for us, we were kind of trying to flip the script. Everyone's doing bright white, very light, very white, like 5,000 lumens light. So cold light, concrete floors. We kind of went the opposite. We did black ceilings. We did some kind of linear LED lighting on the ceiling, and then more of a vanilla ice cream color wall. So it is a little bit more of that darker, almost like a barbershop-esque vibe.
That's a good,
just from the aesthetics. There's a lot of maple, a lot of powder-coated steel, and then we have a really nice offsetting wall mural that
I love that.
ties everything together.
Yeah.
And I love what you guys did with the pharmacy instead of just the typical pharmacy thing, kind of to even give a little bit of a hat tip to the, farming. I'm assuming that's what you're kind of hat tipping to with the pharmacy part.
Yeah. This is, our whole motto is plants over pills.
Sure.
And so this really is, everything's coming from a farm. So the play on the name, we're realizing now, doesn't serve too well in SEO.
Nope.
So hopefully, we'll come around to that. But yeah, it's an homage to the actual cultivation farmers that go into this, because all of this does come from one of the 8 farms here in Utah.
So how does patients, and maybe Tim might actually even be a better one to ask this, but so you've only been open here for a few days at the time we're recording this. How do patients even find out about this location if they're not involved in like Facebook groups and stuff? Because that's how I find out about a lot of these locations.
I mean,
opening.
I think it's pretty limited, because I think Bijan can't go out and buy an ad. You can't go out and buy a billboard, right? The law restricts you from doing that. So I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, but the people find out about if they're following on social media, because they've allowed you to do some social media. Mm-hmm. And if they're following groups like Utah in the Weeds or UtahMarijuana.org, and they're searching for, frankly, if they're searching for dispensaries in Utah on Google, they're more likely to find us than you right now.
Correct.
And they're going to get that information from somebody outside of you.
That's correct. I think primarily people are finding out through their QMP offices like Utah Therapeutics. Yep. We've had a couple industry advocates do little mini stories on us. We had a soft walkthrough last week. Our whole intention of doing this soft rollout was so that we can really nail down our workflows. So patient check-ins, inventory intake. We want to hammer everything down before we then do our grand opening and allow more people to come through. But right now, it's mostly been social media, word of mouth, industry people. We find a lot of, and also other pharmacies have been referring people to us, because they'll be going there and patients are finding out they don't have any flour, for example, or anything.
Anything available.
Yeah, that's a problem right now downtown, right? And people have been coming down here because of that. We've heard about that.
Yeah, we had a patient yesterday who drove to Ogden and then Bountiful and then Salt Lake and then Lehigh. And shout out to the Cure Leaf guys for sending them our way. But they were able to come back. So it was kind of a nice, scenic drive for them, but we were able to at least provide, we've got an ample amount of variety of flour and concentrates, but I know that every pharmacy is going to come against supply constraints. And so we're a group that doesn't have our own cultivation. So we rely primarily on the relationships we have with cultivators and making it mutually beneficial. So while we don't have a grow, but we can, try and help the cultivators that don't have retail as much. So it's forcing us to work together. Yeah.
And I think it will be good for the industry to have pharmacies like you who aren't vertically integrated, because they will, I don't know. I think people assume that they're going to want to push their own products. Mm-hmm. They're going to want to push their own flour, their own concentrates, and you can essentially just sell patients what works best.
And even to that note, I would say, look, everyone, I'm a capitalist, but I'm also an altruist. And I believe that the market will dictate what we'll want to sell. So even if people were vertically integrated, I think if they thoroughly understand the product and what the patient's trying to accomplish, it's in everyone's best interest to have as most variety as possible, because the market will dictate what patients really want. And so we didn't want to put any patients in a pigeonhole. And, so I have a condition called ulcerative colitis, and I was diagnosed when I was 12. So I've had this condition for quite a while, and I've had to go through the hurdles of, you are only able to take this drug because your insurance covers you here. And when you don't have options, you feel like you're not in control of your own well-being. So, putting our patient hats on, we have to also make the right decisions that, yes, while we have our operator hats on, we have to be mindful of the business. Our number one goal is to make sure that we're serving the patient. So all of our partners in this business and our staff are also patients. And I think that's really important for us to understand that we're not disconnected from our patient group. So understanding that patients need options is one thing we're really trying to accomplish here. So the feedback's been good with the varieties we've had. We've only been open for about 5 days. And I'm sure as word gets out more and more, then more people will come through and hopefully we can navigate those hurdles other pharmacies have been experiencing.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what are your hours here for people listening, like to connect for coming out here?
Yeah, great. So weekdays we're open 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And weekends, Saturday, including Sunday, we're open from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we found that the online ordering ability for us has been really helpful for people, especially during the times where they're just getting off work, they need to get home. So they're able to put in an online order, come in, do a quick pickup, and then make it home on their way home from work. I think over time, again, the industry will dictate what our hours are needed. If we need to be open longer, we'll be open longer. We can switch to more of a drive-through model to be open a little bit longer. But for starters, 11 to 8 on weekdays and then 12 to 6 on weekends. And you can find us on social media. If you Google us, Beehive Farmacy with an F, you'll be able to find our hours, our website. And for those first-time patients that require a consultation, you can schedule one of your visits directly from either our Instagram or from our website with a patient registration link.
Okay, very cool.
Okay, that's good.
And
I've
already checked out your website. I mean, your website's beautiful. I mean, you got everything on there. And it looks like you have another location you guys are planning on opening up.
We do.
Down the road?
We do. We're going to open that one. We just started the design and the construction side of it. We'll be open in December. So our goal, things happen. No one expected COVID. So we were hoping to be open a little earlier, but we're moving forward with that. That should be open by year end. And we're going to be located right across the street from the Walmart in Brigham City.
Okay.
So Brigham City is a little sleeper town located between Ogden and Logan. And we're one of the closer towns to the Idaho border. So I think we're going to be able to cater to that rural demographic in Region 1.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
It's going to be a pretty cool. I'm excited actually to go up there and see, because it'll be probably smaller space, maybe a little different vibe up there.
Same vibe from the store. So same aesthetics. We're going to do the same floors, same display cases that you've seen in there, same ceiling style. But I think the demographic up there is going to be different. We're here in Salt Lake, we're in an industrial park. So a lot of our neighboring businesses are, we have Utah Therapeutics across the street. We also have, I think Rocky Mountain Water is down here. We've got a lot of industrial space in Brigham City. We're located next to a Subway and a Supercuts. So it's
get a haircut and
it'll be different.
Some cannabis. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you get into, you talked a little bit about your health, and you and I had had a conversation before about that whole experience with general Western healthcare. Was that your introduction to cannabis, or were you involved? How did you get from before to into the cannabis space?
So I was diagnosed, I'm turning 31. I was diagnosed when I was 12. So I didn't find cannabis until I was 19, 20. So about 11, 12 years ago. And, my parents are immigrants. So I was raised, don't drink, don't smoke, don't curse, get good grades, go to college, check all the boxes, be an engineer, a pharmacist or something like that. So, my parents emigrated here from Iran when the revolution happened. So when I had to then venture into, hey, this might help me, it was surprisingly not that uncomfortable of a conversation, because my mother ultimately was in support of it, because she was diagnosed with lymphoma and ovarian cancer as well. So the elephant in the room was there's this thing that can help. And, living in Utah 11 years ago, the cannabis tolerance for society was not where it's at right now.
Not even close.
Not even
and close. So at that time I was very ill. They had thought that my ulcerative colitis had accelerated a colon cancer. I had to, go through and get various tests and bone marrow aspirations just to see if it was T-cell leukemia. So a lot of crazy things were happening. And for the first time, I think it might have been my brother actually that introduced me to it, but
don't tell mom.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny how the tables turn now.
Right.
But at that point, first time I was able to really like walk around and not have symptoms in my stomach anymore. And at that point, I realized I'm like, this is my medicine. So I spent a lot of time in Holland, traveling around doing professional paintball, and I had never consumed cannabis there. I just learned how to roll cones and do all that stuff for my teammates, but for me, I had no reason to consume. And so my introduction to this was purely medicinal, and experiencing that. And then, a lot of close family members, I told you my mother was diagnosed with various forms of cancer. Navigating through that, I think, changes your perspective substantially on what I used to think was, taboo. If somebody, consumed cannabis, then they were, I don't want to say a degenerate, but there was like some negative connotation there. And that was just my cultural upbringing and part of my ignorance on it. So it wasn't until I had to have that personal experience when I realized that, this is medicine. And then trying to be an advocate from that perspective is also difficult when it's still federally and state illegal, and you're working in an environment like I was working for a tech company in Utah County. So it's really difficult to work in that environment and also speak about cannabis and
well, it's Utah County too.
Yeah, I know, but I just think everyone's pulse on cannabis wasn't there, and so now that we're in a place where people are receptive to it, there's support from the regulators, there's support from the powers that be. I think that is enabling people to accelerate their own transformation, because I mean, it's rough when you have to find cannabis on your own and you have to figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and you don't have a system like this in place. It's like a choose your own adventure, you're
right.
I mean, it's, to give you an example, I was taking, we had some Rick Simpson oil for my mother, and, you don't know what the potency is. You don't know.
No, it comes in a syringe. It comes in a syringe. And for those of people who don't know, Rick Simpson oil is like a crude mixture of the cannabis plant, like blended, essentially.
It's like the most full spectrum.
Yeah, blended cannabis plant in alcohol, and then it's distilled, and then the raw material is taken out. But it is strong.
So it's real potent.
It's very, but that's like the true medicine. And so the protocol you're supposed to work on is you're supposed to get up to 0.5 gram per day. That's 500 milligrams of
500 milligrams of THC a day. Like, it's not. People treat it like something to get high with, but the true reason you take RSO is like to get through your treatment.
Yeah, exactly. And
right, you almost put yourself in a cannabis coma. I've heard it's called.
That sounds wonderful.
But, well, to my earlier point, when you're doing some self-administering, you don't know if what you're consuming is 10 milligrams, 50 milligrams. It could be 200 milligrams, and then now the next 3 days are definitely. You're calling in sick to work, and you have to have somebody drive you around. So the fact that now patients can come in and grab something that's tested, it's a controlled dose. I don't think people understand how lucky we are, to be honest with you, because this is something that affects everybody differently. But the fact that we have something available that is controlled and tested, you hear a lot of people complaining about, oh, we don't have this yet, we don't have that yet. Look, small wins. Amazing. Right.
We're only less than a year into this right now.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, we don't have enough product, but we have some product.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, it's like you mentioned with COVID earlier, how the other location in Brigham City wasn't going to be open until December. COVID kind of set it back. But if you go back and think, COVID kind of started when the system started here in Utah, right? In March.
Very much.
And here in the States. And so it's like, obviously we weren't planning this. And so, I give some of these pharmacies a break, really. Is you guys are trying to open as quick as you can.
But it's also not just a pharmacy thing. You have to, it's a supply chain thing, So you've got cultivators who are ramping up their outputs. You've got processors who are figuring out their different methods of extraction, plus what finished goods they're going to create. And then that's when the pharmacies come in. And so there's really only a handful of pharmacies that have their own vertically integrated grow. So a lot of the other pharmacies are navigating through this, saying what processors are there, what products do they have. So I know everyone really is trying their best. And I think that we give it some time, 6 months, a year. You'd be surprised how much this program has been refined in the last 9 months. Whereas, you look at, we've been active in California and in Oregon and in other markets, and it takes years for some level of progress to where we have, granted, no one really likes imposed regulations, but we're very fortunate that the regulators here really care about the patients. They listen, and so creating a program that allows patients access and allows the ability for producers to create products, give it 6 months, a year, and I know you're going to see some of those brands and products that you've seen in neighboring states being produced here. And I think that's what patients ultimately want is, I know that, I trust that.
Right.
It's
I got that in California.
It's like Tylenol.
Right. You know what you're getting.
For sure.
You've had good experience with it. There's a lot of patients in Utah who are getting product off the black market who know, I was buying Banana Kush, and when I could get that was what worked for me. And, it's not available here, but when it is, those things will be nice. Yeah.
And, I know a lot of groups, we're working with a handful of brands to be their platform in Utah. We talked a little bit with the Salt Lake City guys about bringing cookies to Utah. And, that's a big move, because a lot of people here, Girl Scout cookies is a strain that,
I think it's the most popular strain for medical cannabis in the nation.
It's one of the most well-known, for sure.
Definitely one of the most well-known.
For sure. And everyone has an opinion. Everyone's an expert. But that's just one example where you have that brand loyalty, and you also have that experience. When you go to another state and I purchased this product, that you had a same experience every single time. And so our intention is to create that same experience for patients that are looking for options that otherwise would resort to the illicit market, like you said, to get their Banana Kush or get their vape cartridges as they would. But long story short, after I got diagnosed and started integrating cannabis into my regimen, I realized that cannabis was just one piece of it. Everyone likes to say that cannabis is the cure, and I agree with them, but it's one part of the thing. There's your mindset, you've got your diet, you've got I'm a little esoteric, so it's like I'm all about the energy that you surround yourself with. So cannabis is just one really important piece in that. And so from the time that I recognized that this is a really good medicine for me, I'm an opportunist. And so that was 2009, 2010. Shortly after that, Denver went recreational, and Colorado went rec, and then Portland in Oregon actually went recreational as well. And so those were my first steps into the industry. Had a vape pen company called Wellness Pen about 10 years ago. And we would go to music festivals in Colorado when it was rec, and we would sell the devices. So it was kind of like a load your own concentrate device. And I remember, I sold as many vape pens there, or hardware devices, as I had made my annual salary at the tech company I worked at. And I realized, I'm like, wow, this is it, and at that point I didn't understand manufacturing and quality control and quality assurance. And so while I thought I was on top of the world, I didn't realize my products had like a 30% defective rate. And so when you're constantly servicing product, you learn a lot about what not to do in the future. So after we did Wellness Pen, which we're going to be launching back in this market, we then looked at Oregon, because they then went recreational, had minimal barriers to entry. So similar to like in Oklahoma now, where if you have an address, you have a compliant asset from a zoning perspective, you could go and get licensed. So while some boys from Utah thought that was a great idea, so did every other person out there. So, you see a huge influx of producers, manufacturers, and then that also led to a mass oversupply and kind of price bottoms in those markets. So getting my feet wet in those real mature markets have really allowed me to navigate this market much better and learn from our mistakes in the past. And then after that, I had a dispensary in California, in Stockton, California. And, California was in this phase where it's called Prop 215, which is where it was going from the medical market to their adult use market. So there was a lot of shifts in testing. There was a lot of shifts in regulations. And so similar to how we're navigating here right now, you have to be nimble because as soon as the law changes, your whole business model can change.
Sure.
Yeah.
So seeing what REC did for California, REC put on a lot of taxes and it made a lot of operators difficult to be successful. And so one thing that we need to realize here in the state is while people are complaining about pricing, this is medical and medicine's not taxed. And so as much as people want the market to go recreational, I think you have to realize, what does that do for the end price for the patient? Yes, the city, the government is going to get their tax on it, but what costs you right now $60 for 3.5 grams, it's going to cost you out the door $87. So that was a huge shift in California from 215 to 64. And, over the last several years exited those opportunities to focus purely on Utah. And in that process, over the last 10, 11 years, met my two partners in this venture, one of which, his name's Paul Henderson. He's the current president of High Times.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Ex-BYU. You met him the other day,
yeah.
Tim. Ex-BYU, ex-Goldman Sachs.
Wait, he's here in Utah?
Yeah. He lives.
You should get him on this podcast.
Yeah. He had to fly out to Oakland.
He took over for Stormy.
Yeah, who we had on last week.
Yeah. We interviewed her last week.
Yeah, she's great. I met her out in Paul out in their Venice office, right. And it's funny, Utah's always got this connection to cannabis out there. People, don't realize how big Utah is in the industry. One thing people don't recognize. Shout out to Highly Educated. They were the first people that made titanium nails, which people would consume concentrates on, and they made e-nails about 11 years ago. I remember. So. They were here from Utah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we met. So Paul and I connected. Paul understands the local landscape. He's been CFO and CEO of very large vertically integrated companies in California. So similar to my experience, we're leveraging what we've learned in other markets and then trying to bring that here in the most efficient ways possible. And then our third partner, Steve Brewster, he's we met through a mutual friend. And I'm very kind of woo-woo out there. I feel like you meet people, there are no accidents. And the three of us met each other and it all came together. We have very complementary skill sets. Steve is a local entrepreneur for the last 30 years here. He owns Mill Creek Coffee. And I believe you had Stacy from Mill Creek Coffee on here.
On the other podcast.
I
Am Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And so, he's ex KPMG, which is a really reputable firm, and he did tax there for almost 12 years. So from a skill set perspective, one thing people also don't recognize in cannabis is taxes there's this code called 280E.
We heard about that with at Deseret Wellness, 280E. Mm-hmm. And when they reduce or when they decide that you can do this, they decriminalize it. It could make it worse. Well, or the taxes could go down.
So
because 280E, explain 280E again for us.
So 280E, and I won't do it justice. Steve will kill me because I'm not the tax guy, but 280E is the IRS code where you cannot write anything off besides the cost of goods sold for a federally illegal business. So this was designed to capture drug traffickers back in the day. And I don't think they anticipated us having some legitimized trade like this. But in a normal business, let's just say if you make $100 or you sell something for $100 and it costs you $50, you've made $50. You then pay your rent, you pay your employees, you figure out what your overhead is, and then you pay taxes on your profitability. 280E prevents you from doing any kind of deductions. So you're paying taxes on that full 50, even if it costs you $40 to make that 50. So that makes things a little bit difficult in cannabis. You know, people have a perception that cannabis businesses print money. Well, a lot of that money is going back to the government. And so if cannabis were to be decriminalized or rescheduled and open up and 280E goes away, it would open up access to traditional banking, which, you know, again, another thing that we're super, super stoked for. You know, Utah First is able to support us in actual banking. So here in Utah, the operators have the ability to actually use a bank account, which for normal people doesn't sound like a crazy thing, but being in cannabis, having to operate everything with just cash, not being able to have bank accounts or have to work with out-of-state credit unions at usury rates, you know, we're very lucky here to have banking in. But when 280E goes away, that opens up banking for JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, just like a regular business. You can get lines of credit. Your access to capital will be, you know, more available. So it's going to change things for the industry, I think, for the better. But with that too, you also have to think if it's no longer a federally controlled substance or it gets rescheduled, you know, how does it get treated? Can it be sold in regular pharmacies? Can it be sold in 7-Elevens? You know, so that's, you know, 5 years down the road.
Hopefully not that long.
Hopefully not that long, but you know, I don't want to be drinking the Kool-Aid thinking it's going to happen tomorrow.
No. See, and I think I was drinking that Kool-Aid for way too long. Too many years over the last, 10, 15 years. Oh, maybe this is the year.
It's going to be, it's going to happen. I mean, I think it's going to be 5 years after they decriminalize it before we even really start to see a lot of changes.
And with the election coming up too, you know, you hear certain sides saying it's going to go certain ways.
Right.
And I think that the one thing that we've learned in cannabis is it's almost like dog years. You know, 1 year in cannabis is like 7 regular years. So
if you think about how far we've gone, even in the last 5 or 6 years, though, like, right? Because Colorado was just recreational 2014, right?
I believe it's
that's 2014. That's only like 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's not
but
that
it's
long.
Never taken a state less than, I think, 12 years to go from medical to recreational. And I think that there'll be states that do it faster.
Sure.
But 12 years is still a long time, and it's a long time from now. That would be 2032 when we went recreational, and that's the fastest it's been done. Arizona, I think, will vote on it this time, and that might speed that process up, and maybe we can half that time. But that's still 6 years from now.
And normally, if you look at the data on the states there's a couple anomalies, but usually you want it to get to there's like Arizona's at about 3%.
Yep, 3%.
So what that means is 3% of their adult population happen to be medical cannabis patients. And then that's kind of the tipping point where they're saying now it's going to go recreational. You know, everyone is saying like, oh, it's going to go rec. You know, let's just focus on this.
Let's just do this well.
Let's just do this well, and then there may not be a need to. You know, and I think that when you open up those gates, it becomes very different. You know, like you have cannabis in recreational states that, you know, here we have some restrictions on what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. When it's recreational, those restrictions necessarily aren't there. And so for those reasons, I don't really see Utah being one of those states that is going to be gung-ho to go rec. And, you know, we need to treat this as medicine, so let's do it right.
Right.
Or they'll get rid of it all.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And I think that, like, in my opinion, and I've said this before, Chris, and I don't know if you've heard me say this, Bijan, but the problem I see with adult use and rushing to that is, on my side, is you delegitimize the medical benefit of cannabis when you rush to just promote it for recreational or adult use. If you bypass the benefit, if you bypass the education and that process where people learn that it can help you, the suffering that you had with colitis, it can help with the pain that you have in your knee. Mm-hmm. You know, if you go through that process and understand that there's some medical benefit, then we go to adult use. Okay, I'm on board with that. but I don't want to skip this piece. This piece is it's so rewarding to see patients come in here and buy product, go home, try it for 4 or 5 days and realize, wow, I feel like I feel better. You know?
No, agreed. Right? 100%. I think we also have a lot of people's opinions that necessarily are used to going to a Nevada or a Colorado that are saying, you know, why can't Utah be like that? And you're right. You know, if in my experience, it was more transactional where it was like an adult use, I go in, buy flower, consume it. I don't think that it would have the same impact on me and my condition, because then because people put it in the same category if it's adult use as, you know, other vices. Call it tobacco, call it
alcohol, tobacco. Yep.
And so I couldn't disagree with that. I couldn't disagree with that more.
Yeah. So
I think we need to just really do a good job on nailing medical. I think you guys do a great job over at your clinic on because we see people after they come from your clinic, you know, and there's an individual wide assortment of people, vets. You've got, you know, people that for me, I view them as like my parents, you know, and like,
right.
I want to be able to create an environment where if my parents came in or my grandparents came in, they would feel comfortable and safe. They're not going to think they're walking into a head shop. And, and so people that have come through from your offices, you know, they've been thoroughly informed and educated, and they understand that like, this is supposed to be an integrated piece of my well-being. They were either on Wellbutrin or taking Tylenol or ibuprofen or whatever.
Sure.
And hey, this is going to help me feel better in these ways and not discredit any of the actual benefits from it, instead of just saying, hey, this is something that could alter your mindset.
Right.
So
have we talked about the products here at all?
Well, I want to go back to one thing, because I picked up on one thing that we haven't talked about. And this is this professional paintballing thing.
Oh. I heard that too, and I was like, ooh.
I mean, I know that I'm going to get some comments about that. Like, hey, you didn't ask him about the paintballing.
So you were a
like,
professional paintballer?
How do you even become a professional paintballer?
I've never even been paintballing.
So we'll have to change that. We'll have to tell you guys. It's crazy. So it used to be this, paintball was kind of the thing that I found when I got sick, because I got sick at a very young age when I was 12. So 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade. So that was the thing that I found that I could do. I used to play soccer a lot, but once you have a gastrointestinal autoimmune disease, you're limited. You're on prednisone. You can't be in the sun. You know, it's just, there's a lot of factors. So I found paintball. Ironically, it was my brother's birthday. I wasn't old enough to go because you had to be, I think, 12 at the time. And it was this weird outlet where, you know, like I relate it to cannabis so much because with cannabis, people don't care where you're from, what you do for work, what you wear. It doesn't matter. It's like food and music. You know, it brings you together. You don't put labels on people. You're here for one common thing. And paintball was very much like that. And so that was my introductory to like getting to know people. Like, how do I know people? So I'd go there on the weekends, play. I'd get my ass kicked. And then soon I started like getting better and better and overcoming my own fears of like, hey, if I go out here and I get shot, it's the limitation of the fear of getting shot that prevents you from moving. So on a macro level, it was like a good life experience. I got to travel. You know, I was going to California every weekend from Thursday to Sunday. I'd go to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, get in my car, drive to California Thursday, Friday, have practice Saturday, Sunday, drive home, do it all over again. And so because my parents are immigrants, the whole thing was you go to college, get good grades. They didn't care what else I did. So that was kind of my compromise. And then once you do well regionally, then you go on a national team. And I was fortunate enough to get picked up by some guys in Australia and some guys in Holland. So for about 5 years, I was going to Amsterdam probably 4 or 5 times a year.
Very cool.
And so
cool.
But this is before I even like respected cannabis or even knew of it. I always thought it was like this evil thing.
So you were going to Amsterdam where it was like the only legal place.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And going there to play paintball.
Exactly. But seeing how they handled it, you know, the coffee shops there are not like a regular coffee shop here. You don't get coffee there. You get you get cannabis, but they also have like pastries and stuff. But they created an environment where you recognize that there is an illicit market. So how do you legitimize it? How do you control it? And what they did was they changed the stigma of it being socially acceptable. And they set the standard for a lot of people, but they were years ahead of everyone. So, one thing that like my cannabis 101 experience was all Holland. So like I realized that all like the hazes, a lot of the haze strains, those are all original Dutch classics. You've got a super silver haze, you've got like the Jacks, you've got amnesia hazes. Those are all very heady sativas that are sold all throughout Holland. And then, the cones, I'm sure you've seen.
Oh, yeah.
The cones. So like I learned how to, I can only roll a cone. I don't know any other way because that's how they taught me in Holland.
Yeah, frankly, I don't roll. I do not roll a good joint, but I can roll a better cone than anything else. But I don't understand why. But it makes sense that you would learn it that way.
Yeah, it's just it's just a cultural thing. It's like how they do it. There's a crutch, there's the papers, but it's been a while since I've done that. Since here in the state we can only consume through vaporizing. So after we did the paintball tours, you can only survive for so long, traveling through a suitcase, traveling around the world. But that for me was just my whole, I think like life education. I did my education at the U. I did my undergrad and grad up there. But paintball for me was my life experience and like my life education and understanding like what is important, different cultures. I feel like if you're able to go outside of this bubble here, pick and choose what works, what doesn't work, and bring it back, that's ultimately how I've been able to be successful. So similar to the cannabis thing, what has worked in other markets, what hasn't worked in other markets, and then leverage that information here in Utah. So it's been a while since I played paintball, since I had to grow up and get a tech job to get insurance to pay for all the medications and infusions that I was on for the colitis.
Yeah, the freaking medical system is just a tragedy. When it comes down to that, like you've got to get a job that has healthcare to pay for the medicine because you're $2,000 a month and just your infusions or whatever.
It was $11,000 because at the time Remicade wasn't covered by the insurance.
Wow.
So my first year on the infusion therapy, I racked up like $90,000 in medical debt. But I was fortunate enough to learn that the hospitals have programs where they can work with you. So I wasn't destitute for, debt. But cannabis at that point, like that's why I'm super grateful for getting diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, because I feel like while growing up, that was my biggest, I don't want to say like Achilles heel, but I think it was the biggest blessing I had. It kind of gives me superpowers. I feel like overcoming that. And then paintball, like those two things have honestly led me to cannabis. When I moved to San Diego to play paintball regularly, that's where I ultimately met a lot of people in the Prop 215 cannabis days. Paintball has a special place in my heart.
Do you still get out and play?
No, because I don't.
You're here all the time now.
Yeah. I need to make more time to do things that I like to do. I get up in the mountains and go hiking when I'm not here. But the rush you get from paintball and like just being in a gunfight with somebody, I don't like that term, but I don't like guns. It's exhilarating. And,
sure.
and then understanding your adrenaline, like fight or flight mode. How do you navigate that? That's not just useful in paintball, but just in personal life. Like when you're flooded, how do you react? I've been guilty of not managing that well, so it's been a good sure. tool for that.
Oh, way cool. So what's your favorite product you're going to bring in?
So favorite product we're going to have produced here in Utah. There are a few. One I'm really stoked on is called the Omura, and it's a portable handheld flower device where we have these pre-filled sticks. It's a paper tube that we fill with ground flower, and then that tube sits inside of the battery. And that is going to be about 0.15 grams per tube. And then that thing vapes it throughout and throughout. You get a really solid, almost coffee ground color out of it. Doesn't burn it, just vaporizes it. And for me, I'm really excited because that has been the most convenient, compliant, healthy way for me to consume. So we'll be bringing Omura here under a couple different brands, working with some of the Sugar House Selects team to put some of that flower in there. We'll be working with the Relief Society brand to put some ground up flower in there. And then we're going to have some house brands as well. So Omura, I'm really thrilled on. We're bringing another device to market called the Indos. And I'm really excited to bring that one. That's a controlled dose distillate cartridge pen. So normally with cartridges, you have a battery and you have the cartridge that you screw in. This is one unit that measures the amount of THC that's actually being inhaled through the vapor. So you as a
oh yeah, we had talked about this a little bit before. This is a big deal.
Yeah, so
because patients can. What you're saying is I can say, look, you need 2 inhalations, which is going to be exactly this many milligrams of THC.
Correct.
Or 1 inhalation.
Yeah, or consume 10 milligrams of THC through, oral inhalation.
Boom.
5 milligrams per inhalation. And taking that as more of an introductory product, for example, like that wouldn't be my day-to-day use because I know that I need more than 5 milligrams, for example. But I think for somebody that's cannabis curious and they're getting their foot in the door on how do I integrate cannabis into my healthcare regimen.
Right. Without getting so stoned, I can't focus. I can't take care of my kids. Right. Like this is a really important piece.
For sure.
Limiting or regulating the dosing on inhaled methods, especially.
Or even knowing, because you don't know how much you're consuming. A cartridge can hold anywhere from 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams of THC based on its potency. So how much of that are you actually consuming? So that product, those guys have a lot of patents on there. Took them a little bit of time to get it to market because of all the IP behind it. But we're very thrilled to bring that one in. Sugar House Selects is another brand of flower, which I'm ecstatic to bring. That has a really good selection of strains that hasn't been available here in the state yet. Those are, like right now, there's about 5 strains. Fatso, Cherry AK Cake, Orange Push Pop Wedding Cake, Cinnamon Skittles, and Ice Cream Cake. A lot of those are going to be heavy indica leaners, high in myrcene, really good for inflammation, really good for people that are looking for something that's going to chill them out, help them get more relaxed, as opposed to more stimulated, like a Durban Poison from Standard Wellness, for example, which great product that we currently sell here. Really strong sativa.
Mm-hmm. Really popular sativa.
Yeah, really good. And then obviously Cookies is going to be one that we're ecstatic to bring.
Sure.
We're going to have Cookies corners in all of our stores, meaning we're dedicating a specific retail space in our store just to stock these products. And these products are all going to be cultivated, processed, and sold here in the state. So, while we're trying to focus on having the best retail pharmacy experience, I think that is ultimately determined by your vibe, but also the products that are available. So we're bringing all of those to market. Cookies should be live Q1 next year. We're now working strategically with partners on the cultivation side to get that up and running so then they can process that and then sell it to us. Omura and Indos should be going live in November. We're waiting on a test result for some distillate to fill the Indos pens with. And then we're waiting for some of the labels to get done on the Omura devices. But these are just small, little different products we're going to be bringing that initially will only be available at our Beehive location in Salt Lake and our Beehive location in Brigham City. But as the supply increases and we have more available inputs, we want to be able to offer that on a wholesale level to a lot of the other pharmacies and have patients have access, because we don't want people driving 4 or 5 hours and coming if something's not available for them. So for those reasons, we're going to be doubling down on our home delivery piece when home delivery goes live in the next couple of weeks. And we're also working with other retailers in Region 3 and Region 4 so that they can have access to the different products that we're going to be bringing. So keep your eyes out the next couple of weeks. We'll have the Indos, the Omura ones coming through. We'll also have Sugar House Selects and Relief Society dropping as well. And then Cookies will be coming Q1 of next year.
Relief Society. I like that.
I know.
What a good name for a cannabis company, right?
Utah does pretty well with that. We play on those words, right?
Yeah.
We play on the culture here.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's fun.
I mean,
don't take yourselves too seriously.
I mean, our friends at Squatters did a really good job with that, with the polygamy porter.
Yeah.
Provo Girl.
Right. A lot of those.
Yeah, we have a billboard that says a different kind of recommend.
Oh,
UtahMarijuana.org.
Oh, that's great. Where's that one going up?
It's a digital on I think 33rd, 39th South, and we have it comes up in Ogden as well in Clearfield.
So if any of our listeners see it, take a picture.
Yeah, take a picture
send it to Tim or me, and we'll send you a prize, right?
Absolutely.
We'll send you a gift.
Yeah, I've got a mask. I've got a cannabis mask for you, handmade cannabis mask, and I'll donate the money for cancer treatment.
No, I see a lot of people with those masks too, so I always know.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah. They're reversible, and so you can wear it to the grocery store and wear it to the pharmacy
at your locations. Right?
Yeah, you can get it right across the street from Beehive Pharmacy right here.
So come get some cannabis and come get a mask with cannabis on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys. How did you guys get into? I'm always curious to know how
we
people.
Met.
Well, how did you guys get into cannabis? How did you guys meet? Everyone's got their story. I'd be curious to know kind of your guys' intro.
Sure. And I don't know if I've shared a whole lot of my story. The first time I ever used cannabis was actually about 20 years ago. Okay. And I was going through a bad breakup. And I was living in Pennsylvania, actually. I was telling you how I was living out east. Mm-hmm. And, I had such a different, I was raised that it was this horrible thing. But I was going through such a breakup. And I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't much of a drinker. And so he's like, puff on this. And that and Pink Floyd, it was a beautiful night, and it's all been a love affair ever since. And him and I actually met. He was on episode 420 of I Am Salt Lake, actually.
Oh, wow. There are no accidents.
Yeah, no, and the funny thing is that was actually kind of a fluke.
Yeah,
it worked out well. Yeah. I mean, obviously, but then Tim was so awesome on the podcast. I was like, "Do you want to do a cannabis podcast?" Because I love it. And I was bringing so many on I Am Salt Lake. There was a lot of cannabis-related people on there. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to oversaturate this podcast. Why don't we do Utah in the Weeds?
Yeah. And that's really how we met. I started to do some stuff in the cannabis space at the beginning of the year and got hooked up with them with I Am Salt Lake. And then that that was perfect.
Instagram, I think it was. Yeah, that I sent you a message. I said, hey, come on the podcast.
No question.
Slid into his DM.
Then he comes, slid into my DM. And then there's no question. Chris comes to me and says, hey, would you be interested in doing a podcast? I mean, yes. When? Can we start tomorrow?
And I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I'm like, well, Tim's the knowledge guy with this stuff.
And I can't do a podcast. Chris does all the work.
No, we
know some people.
Yeah, you guys have a great setup.
It's a perfect.
Well, this is the portable. It's actually, we were recording out of my house, but my room is so small there at the house that I was like, with everything going on, with
this
COVID,
has been great though. We record at my office a lot. We record on location. We've recorded with Sean Hammond. At his grow. We're going down there in 2 weeks again.
That's actually how we met. Was through Sean.
And through Sean, that's how we met.
Shout out to Sean and the Zions guys down there.
Right, and Sean is the reason I'm in this space at all, because we know each other from our daughters played soccer together for years, and we've weightlifted together, Olympic weightlifting, and
that's good.
And in fact, I saw him this morning.
Well, like I told you before, I was like, you meet people,
sure,
and you never know, like, hey, how is this going to map out? And everyone's got we all meet for a reason, so. No, Sean's great. And you guys have been great too. I appreciate what I've found with cannabis is ultimately your true colors will show. Everyone recognizes that we're all here. At least I hope we're all here for the same reason.
I don't think everybody recognizes that. Well, I think there are.
Let's recognize it though.
The true colors though come out, and the people who are just in this for the cash and, making a buck they'll come to the surface, and the people who are out for the patient, they'll come out too.
There's nothing wrong with making money. I'm trying to echo this, but if your intention is pure and you're doing it for the right reasons, the money will always come.
Yes.
And that's why when I look at, hey, like when you're 12, you don't know how to process like a debilitating condition. So I always thought, like, why did this happen? What's going on? Now I realize if I never went through that, I would never be able to provide value in this way, because my ultimate goal is to echo the same experience that I had with this person that's showing up right now and that person and the next person, you know? So had that not happened, I don't know, maybe I would be in it for just the money, but.
Right. I don't know, but the same thing with medicine, you learn that really it's just about the patient. It's about taking care of people. And then, I mean, can everybody afford the visit? No. So we figure it out. You know? We figure out how to help people, get them what they need.
Yeah.
Because in the end, if you help other people be successful, you will be successful.
Rising tides rise all ships, for sure.
Yeah, I love your energy and your attitude, man. It's beautiful.
This is a great place down here.
It's been awesome chatting with you.
Yeah,
and
likewise.
Getting to know you. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about podcasting is when would we have this opportunity? When would I have gotten to know Bijan, you know?
Yeah.
I would have came in here and said hello.
We do get it's a great opportunity to meet people and get right down and
just sit down and chat, man.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard all your other podcasts too. And so, like I said, I'm glad you're here because, you know, you think you know somebody from listening to their stuff, and then you actually meet them and you're like, oh wow, like, yeah, you are in this for, again, all the right reasons. Like you're very genuine, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You like cannabis. You love,
I love helping people, finding out their stories, finding out how they can inspire.
Exactly.
Storyteller.
Because I mean, we all inspire everybody, right? We all motivate each other, and we're all influencing each other. Even back to the cannabis things. Think of all the people that have played a role in your cannabis journey.
Yep.
How many people are you influencing? And if it wasn't for these individuals, maybe we wouldn't even have cannabis here in Utah.
For sure.
So it's kind of wild if you think about it. But
no, you're right, because I had a conversation with someone yesterday. And I'm like, look, I don't know how I can help you, but I I recognize you as a person. I see you. I know what your needs are. If I can't directly help you, I'll still put you on. I'll connect you to somebody that might connect you to somebody, because ultimately that's like, I recognize those people in my cannabis journey, how I was able to get here. And a lot of it is from, having people connect you with the right people, and then you do your thing and learn from that, and then you connect your right people, and it's essentially just paying it forward. It's good people want to help good people win, and I think that hurt people.
Exactly.
So I think we want to just help all good people be successful, and I think we were off to the right start. This program is definitely helping. Right now we're at what, 15,000 patients plus cards
every week. It just keeps going up, Tim.
Yeah, 15,000 patients plus letters, right?
Letters. Yeah,
so we are certainly over 20,000
over 20,000
legal cannabis users in Utah now.
And you've done a pretty good job. I noticed we have these letters or these little cards where when people come in with a letter, all letters expire December 31st. So everyone out there listening, if you have a letter, make sure that you take the steps to be compliant and get through the system, because come January 1, that letter's not going to be valid, and you're going to have to go through regulatory approval. So you could be 7, 10, 14 days without access to your medicine.
Well, look at the people who've had letters this year. I saw a patient who came across the street the other day on Monday from here. We called his QMP. He's not a patient of ours. And we called it. So I just get on the phone. I just call their office, call the QMP, try to get through. Took quite a while. But we talked to the QMP, talked to the medical assistant, and it will take him another 7 days to get his card, because they still have to go back in and certify, and they're not familiar with that process. So we have to help them. And he's been waiting since July to get that done. There's so many patients like that out there. And we have 220-ish people in that pipeline that we've helped. It's not as many as I thought we would be able to help. Most of them are pretty simple. We can direct you to a video, but really we just reach out to your QMP and I'll just talk to them, or I'll have one of my staff talk to the QMP and walk them right through it.
That's super important, because
it's important.
Because I know what it's like when you need something like your medicine, whether it was an infusion or even if it's cannabis, and the insurance is like, yeah, we're going to need a pre-authorization. And you're like, I've been on this for 8 years, every 8 weeks.
Right.
Now, you got to throw your rhythm off. So for everyone.
It's the same thing here with letters to cards. If you have a normal medical practice that doesn't specialize in this, it takes a while for them to get through the process and learn how to do this.
Yeah. So I think that if everyone, gets into the EVS then that's the electronic verification system for everyone. That streamlines the whole thing. I mean, letters were a great compromise from the state to get us through the year. And then now that year is up, we just have to figure out like how do we navigate it? So the 6,500 people that have letters right now, they're all bound to just one pharmacy. So once they come in and get a letter, now they can enjoy Deseret in Provo, Cureleaf in Lehigh, Dragonfly in Salt Lake, us in Salt Lake, Wholesome in Bountiful, Perfect Earth in Ogden and Logan, and the few that are opening up that haven't opened yet. So I think that it's just better for people to do that so they can also understand if there's a product that's not available at your pharmacy, go to the other pharmacies. You can definitely find it. And we're experiencing that right now. There's some things that we don't have that other places have and vice versa. And so I think it gives people the option to be able to shop instead of being bound to just one place.
Absolutely. And I mean, January 1's going to sneak up here. I mean, it's already pretty much November.
It's November.
Yeah,
this is dropping on Friday, and Saturday's Halloween.
Yeah.
So,
Happy Halloween. Everybody.
Yeah. Happy Halloween weekend, right?
Yeah. Be safe with all these numbers going up.
Yeah. But, yeah. Anyways, we should probably get this wrapped up here, Tim.
We're going to have to split this one in two.
Well, no, we'll throw it all out there in one. We'll throw it in one,
This is good.
Just Joe Rogan it for 4 straight hours.
Yeah, man. Joe Rogan it, man. The only thing we're missing here is a volcano, right? Yeah, we need a nice.
We have one. There's no consumption on site. But I hear you.
You guys selling a volcano here?
We do.
Really?
We do. So we've got.
I have one.
You probably have a PAX.
We've got PAX. We've got Puffcos.
Huh?
We've got
Puffcos.
Yeah, so Puffcos are great for concentrates.
But you have no concentrates right now.
We have no concentrates yet. Volcanoes, we have the traditional one with the knob, and then we have the hybrid one, which is a digital display with a digital read on the temperature. And then that one allows you to use, it's called a whip. It's like a little hose instead of the bag.
Nice.
And then we also have the Da Vinci's. So the Da Vinci's are a dry herb vape.
Yeah, ceramic bowls, ceramic ovens, probably the best taste. I understand, but spendy.
Those guys do a great, and the reason why their product is so solid is, we know the founder of the company, and he has a background, 30 plus years in product development, manufacturing in China. So, I talked earlier about my wellness pen experiences with quality assurance. You pick this device up, it's solid. It's all CNC metal. It's not a white labeled product. It's all proprietary to them. So they have a couple different models. One is more portable. One can do concentrates and flour. Volcanoes, I believe, can just do flour right now. And then we have some more coming in. We have a Stunden glass, which is a kind of a glass gravity style device.
I saw Seth Rogen. Is it the one he was using that looked like a capsule type thing?
Like
I saw a video online. Yes. Yeah.
Thing that you flip. But we would have those with an electric vaporizer attachment. Okay. So there's no flame to flour there.
Sure.
And then we're going to be having some of the accessories like grinders and batteries for regular cartridges. So we've got some of those in stock as well.
Very cool. How can people, I know we mentioned that you're right across the street, Tim, but we got
right across the street. Just
how can people find you?
UtahMarijuana.org. Utah Therapeutic Health Center, but really UtahMarijuana.org. Always the best place. Chat us up. If you have questions about letter to card, definitely. If you have questions about dispensaries in Utah, then you can hit us up as well. And we're putting up some pretty good information. We'll have information about Beehive Farmacy here in the next couple of weeks up.
What's the address for you guys here for anyone in the
3615 West. We actually have a West address because what's the South?
South
here?
is 1991 South. Is
1900 South and 3615 West, Building 8.
Okay.
And so your address again here, Bijan, is for people listening.
Yeah. So Beehive Pharmacy is 1991 South, 3600 West.
Okay.
And when you come to the location, look for the Old Bank large sign in the parking lot, and Utah Therapeutics is directly across the street on the west side.
Okay. I mean, you're easy to see. I mean, it's hard to miss Beehive here.
Yeah.
You can see us from the 201.
Yep.
There's no question that people on their way to Wendover are going to realize, wait, I should just stop here, walk in, get an evaluation, get legal, and go across the street. And it would take you less time to do all of that than it would take you to drive to Wendover, break federal law, and get your ass back here.
Yeah, I agree.
And
How about you, Chris?
You could check out my other podcast, I Am Salt Lake Podcast, IamSaltLake.com. Go check it out. This next episode, I don't know if you guys eaten at Grinders 13 by chance, a sandwich joint in Salt Lake?
There's one right over here.
Yeah. We're chatting with the owner of that one on the next episode.
Oh, that's great.
So that's it's fun. We're talking with some. I'm trying to get a lot of food people lately on that one, just because of the food industry was hit so hard with COVID, and so I'm trying to kind of keep them in business, because the local businesses, we need those guys here, right? Without local food, we have only the chain stuff.
And people who use cannabis tend to like good food.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They tend to need sandwiches.
And then on the UtahMarijuana.org has the transcripts, and people can listen to the back episodes, right?
Yeah, we have summaries of all the podcasts there. It's a great place to go if you want to read up what the episode's about before you listen. We put them all up.
Very cool.
Cool.
Well, I'm excited. I'm going to come out and check out some of your products after this interview.
Let's give you a tour, and we got you checked in as a patient, so now we'll be able to get you across the floor. One thing you'll notice on our sales floor is we want it to be an experience. Mm-hmm. So we have floor display cases that you can walk around
and check them out.
Yeah. And then at that point, well, obviously, if you have to meet with a pharmacist, we have 3 consultation rooms you can meet with a pharmacist in, and then we have floor display cases. And then that gives you a little bit of freedom. And I know not everybody wants to be immediately, rush to a counter and say, what do you want? So, I hope you appreciate our flow and then enjoy some of the macro shots that we have on the wall, some high res photos of trichomes on what trichomes should look like with really clear, big trichome heads. But yeah, let's get you out on the floor and let you try some of the product that we have.
Cool. And if anybody comes in, listen to this, mention that you heard them on Utah in the Weeds, right? Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be way cool.
People. So anyway, anything else you guys want to say?
Nope. Stay safe out there, guys.
No, stay safe. Thank you for setting this up, Chris. Thanks for the work that you do. Because from a local business perspective, you mentioned, getting eyes and ears on there is very much appreciated. So help good people do good things.